Warhammer 40k Space Marine 2 recently had a giant FAQ with a major update being teased, common topics of discussion getting direct responses, and much more. If any of that sounds interesting to you, make sure to stick around for the full video as we break down the developers' responses and I give my 2 cents as well. On the Focus Together forum, you can find the Q&A, and if you want a direct link, I'll go ahead and provide it as the pinned comment. But without further ado, let's get right into it, because there's a lot to cover. They start off by stating, you, the players, were invited to help us improve the game by submitting your ideas and upvoting others. And you flooded the forum with posts. Don't feel left behind if you've posted feedback on Discord, Reddit, Steam, or Twitter. We also check all other platforms, but Focus Together is our main platform for feedback. We are so glad to see such enthusiasm and dedication coming from the community. But these ideas are wasted if we don't address them. So, here are a few answers to your hottest topics. Right off the bat, it's fantastic that they're actually reading the feedback, not only on their own dedicated forum, but in other locations as well. It also seems as though they want to be transparent, and getting the developers' feedback directly from them on the biggest talking points in the community seems like an awesome way to start. First on up is connectivity issues. They state, we know some of you are experiencing server issues, loss of saves, or impossibility to connect with friends. We are ramping up our server capacity to reduce the load on them, and are working day and night to reduce the issues. This is a top priority for the team. A bigger patch is planned soon to improve this topic further, alongside new content. I'm personally glad this is the first item on the list, because all the improvements in the world don't matter if people can't actually load in and play the game, and is a topic of major discussion not only in the community, but also a new video I'm recording as well right now behind the scenes, on things needed to be fixed or added sooner rather than later. I'm happy to see them at least temporarily going ahead and lightening the load on their servers to try and help as best they can now while working on a long-term solution. I know it's not easy, and they're probably crunching as hard as they can as to not lose their current player base. So I wish them the best of luck in finding out the solutions through patches and updates as soon as possible. Overall, it's just great to hear it's basically their #1 priority, and that this will hopefully be fixed for everyone soon. Next, we have inquiry to the AI for teammates in the game. The question is, bots are regularly mentioned as inefficient, making solo games significantly harder, and you suggested we work on them. According to you, they don't participate in focusing on objectives or don't do enough in tense situations. The developers answered, bots seem a bit passive because we don't want them to take the spotlight from the player. However, they can sometimes be a bit too passive. In the next patch, we have a few improvements for their behavior against boss fights in the campaign. We are also considering improving their involvement during specific objectives in the campaign for a later patch. I think it's good to see the AI getting a bit of a buff. Personally, I play with friends on the game, so I haven't experienced them too much, but AI squad mates are almost always doing something passive, silly, or nonsensical in a lot of squad-based games or shooters, if there's not someone actually controlling them. So seeing them get a bit of a revamp for solo or duo players is awesome to hear all around. On the same kind of note, we get another question about the campaign mode, specifically it being on veteran or harder. The question was, veteran difficulty is said to be too hard in solo as the bots don't help with the objectives. The developers answered, we will adjust veteran difficulty in a future patch. It will remain challenging, but it will be slightly more fair because we will tweak AI aggressiveness on this difficulty. Other difficulties will remain untouched. Again, personally, I'm playing through it on veteran with friends, so I don't have direct feedback in this scenario in particular, but it is curious to hear soloing is a bit of a problem for players that are playing on veteran mode, and that the veteran mode AI will be buffed up more so than other game modes in the game. I'm assuming this will be happening for Season 2's lethal mode as well, but we'll just have to wait and see on that one. Now we get into the PvE questions, and the first main topic is on balancing. These questions read as follows. Question 1 is, Assault is often listed as less powerful than other classes. The jump pack in PvE loses its versatility compared to the one in the campaign. They answered, we are still collecting data on the issue to see how we can work on it. The next question was, the blocking trait is seen by the community as a bad thing for melee weapons, as it removes the potential for mastery because there is no perfect parry window. The developers answered, we fully agree that this is a bummer, and will definitely make changes in a future patch. The last outline question for balancing was, Bolt Rifle family is underperforming while Melta Gun is considered OP. The developers answered, we have noticed a bug where the Melta allows the user to heal above the contested health. We aim to fix this in the next patch. As for the rest of the weapon balancing, we hear you, and some weapons can underdeliver on the power fantasy at higher difficulty levels. We also recognize that enemies can be too bullet spongy on higher difficulty, which is not fun. That's the core issue, rather than the bolter themselves. For now, we're testing some tweaks in difficulty to make the enemies have less health, but keep the engaging difficulty. With these balancing answers, we get a sneak peek into the mind of the developers on the matter, and it seems that rather than just buffing or nerfing the weapons outright, they're taking account of all external factors that could make the weapon or classes feel a certain way. For example, the bullet sponge comment on the higher difficulty, instead of saying the bolter was too weak, they're saying about adjusting the overall health of enemies while keeping the threat level high, and for the assault class, rather than just buffing the jump packs to the state in campaign or PvP, they want to see how it'll affect the difficulty modes in PvE, especially with some of the changes coming up, to see if it'll be too powerful then. They even mentioned possibly changing the blocking type of melee weapons, but didn't say they were going to outright buff those types of weapons, which was interesting to say the least. When it comes to quality of life in PvE, these were the major questions addressed in their answers. Question 1 was, you asked to be able to have several of the same class in operations mode. There is also frustration in matchmaking when two players want to be in the same class. They answered, for now, we're focusing on improving matchmaking so that you will not matchmake with players of the same class. This is not an easy fix, so it will take us time to roll it out. As for using the same class, we don't want to change that rule for regular matchmaking, but we are considering it as an expansion of private lobbies in the future. It will take us time to finish it. Question 2 was, it was observed that players tend to show toxic behaviors as they get kicked late during a game made by a group of friends to let their friend get the XP. The developers answered, we understand that this is unfair, and each player will receive XP based on his actual involvement in the mission. And the final question was, saved loadouts don't include skill tree customizations, making them less relevant. They answered, this is not a priority for us at this moment. It seems like for the quality of life, these are taking a back burner role overall for the moment while they try to fix their connectivity issues. And I myself think this is the correct approach when you have such a glaring problem in the game. Eventually, it looks like these will be considered more once they have their game rolling the way they want, but for now, these will probably be more addressed in depth in the next FAQ. The one that stuck out to me personally was the one about kicking others from operations to essentially invite friends to take over the experience gained from that mission. Personally, I find that type of behavior to be so annoying and just so unwanted in the community. Hopefully, if it isn't implemented already, the XP you earn is the XP you get, even if voted out towards the end of matches, sooner rather than later. Next on up, we have PvP-centered questions, and the first one revolves around matchmaking. The question reads, you've suggested making it possible to tag a squad of 6, and they answered, we understand this need, we want players to add custom PvP lobbies, and give players more control over the match. For example, frag limits, class restrictions, etc. It's not that easy to make, and it takes time. So please bear with us while we work on it, and we will let you know when we have clear visibility on when it will be released. To me, it sounds like squad limit will more than likely take time to increase, and eventually be used to set up custom lobbies more than actually to let you squad up with a full team of friends for PvP. As they state, it will take some time, and I believe since people are requesting it, having 6 friends in one PvP lobby will eventually be possible, whenever they're actually able to implement this squad increase and custom lobby features into the game. Next, we had some questions on balancing for PvP, and the questions and answers were the following. They have 2 back-to-back questions here stating, it was brought to our attention that shot grenades are OP, also many of you consider melee to be underpowered. Assault is considered weak in PvP, Bulwark is considered overpowered in capture zones, and Heavy is overpowered, too much damage for its durability. The developers answered, regarding PvP balancing, we are currently reading and crunching the data. We don't want to make rash decisions before seeing the global picture. At the moment, we are checking the most common topics such as melee balancing, shot grenades, bulwark, and heavy being too present in capture game modes. Expect some tweaks in the first big content patch, but not before. The final question was, no team balancing after matches creates unbalanced matches for several matches in a row. They answered, we have heard this many times, and we want to improve this in future patches. We're looking into it. Here they outright state no PvP changes are happening before the big first content patch, where they will eventually determine what needs more tuning. They don't give us a time frame, but I would assume it's going to be during Season 2, around early to mid-October. Personally, I can outplay a heavy even with a bubble shield from time to time, but randomly hearing the beep from a grenade and instantly going down is a bit annoying at times. while bulwarks can seemingly tank forever as long as they have their shields up. Personally, I'm hoping the grenades get a bigger or better indicator, and the bulwark shields would break their stance or be on cooldown after taking a certain threshold of damage. As for the heavy, taking down the shield just a couple of hit points would probably be enough for people to see a noticeable difference. Lastly, for PvP, they touch on spawns, and this is what they had to say on the matter. The question was, spawning locations can create spawn kill situations. They answered, this will be tweaked with some parameters in a future patch. We will implement spawn protection. The way I see it, spawns in most games are usually finicky at first, especially in a game where PvP probably wasn't the priority. But I think after a couple of changes and minor tweaks, it will be as good as it needs to be for a game like this. Spawn protection seems like a fine addition and a step in the right direction, in case anyone was getting majorly spawn camped. But from my personal experience, it is almost never needed. After this, they touch on the most upvoted items, and without making this a 20-minute video, I'll be going through some of the most important or highly talked about questions. Question 1 was, you asked to pick the Chaos Space Marines legions you want for every class. Their answer was, there are many lore restrictions preventing us from doing this. For instance, we cannot make a sniper with a World Eater armor. It is very tricky to match armor pieces for Chaos. Armor pieces have different sizes and styles, and they can clip through each other, etc. Also in PvP, it is important to be able to recognize an enemy's class, and we want to keep the visual identity of each of them. Now, we will not keep it as it is and would like to expand Chaos customization, but the reality is they won't be as modular as the Loyalist. Question 2 was, many of you asked for new classes. Their answer was, that is definitely something we are heavily discussing. Adding a new class is quite heavy on production, as we also need to create all the customization. PvP Chaos model variant and animation set depending on what we go for. We'll keep you updated about this topic. Question 3 was, adding new melee weapons. They answered, new melee weapons would definitely be an extremely cool addition. Making a weapon and designing it is fine, but we need to make all the finisher animations for it. It will take time. The next question was customizing your Marine's face. They answered, not a quick fix, but we will add an option to change your Marine's face. This is one I thought was not going to happen, and here we go, we're actually getting it. The next two ones are gameplay features that people have been heavily requesting, so let's break them down here. The first one is a field of view slider and left and right shoulder swap. They answered, a field of view slider is not something we are comfortable with, as it can degrade the visual aspect of the game, and on top of that, it is very complex. Our game is not a first-person shooter. The camera that we have is a very cinematic and constantly changing position and field of view based on what you're doing. Still, we understand that it is a very popular request, so we are considering it anyways. As for the shoulder swap, if we are to implement shoulder swap, we still need to support it for all melee animations and transitions, because everything in melee combat was made based on the fact that you hold the pistol in the left hand and the melee weapon in the right hand, because it looks badass. Nevertheless, shoulder swap is a feature we will not add in the game. So basically, even though they have no intention of actually going ahead with the field of view slider in early production of the game, now that it's released, they're considering it because it is such a hotly requested item. Whether we actually get it, we actually won't really know until we hit the ground running and get the game working first and foremost. As for the shoulder swap, this is something that I was personally wanting as well, but it seems like because of the animation differences that they'll have to do, pretty much overhauling every class while they do it, it seems like we're not actually going to be getting it, at least in Space Marine 2. The final question that we're going to have here is one on iframes on gun strikes. To break it down real quick, when you're doing one of those dodges or parries and you're able to shoot someone with your pistol in the head in order to do more damage, getting them closer to an execution, a lot of people were requesting invincibility frames to actually be able to go ahead and do executions without taking more damage than what you're recovering. They answered this question as follows. Gun strikes are a risk-reward action, and it is very easy to spam. We specifically did not put an iframe on it for balancing reasons, and we are not looking to change this intention. So as of right now, we will not be getting any invincibility frames when it comes to executions or gun strikes in the foreseeable future. And honestly, if it was an intention since the beginning, I don't think it's ever going to change. These were all of the major questions. If you want to go ahead and see all of them for yourself, again, I'll have the direct link to the FAQ as the pinned comment. They do say that they're adding more lenses for visors, adding more colors, and are trying to do Chaos Marine customization as well, as you heard a little bit before, but it's not guaranteed. But if they do add it, it will more than likely be added either in their major patch that they keep teasing, or in updates after it. Overall, I'm very happy with the transparency and their enthusiasm to make this game as good as it can be, all while keeping it as grounded to what they can actually accomplish as possible. I'm loving that they're prioritizing fixing this game for everyone currently having trouble queuing into matches. I love the customization features that they're bringing in, and they answer almost everything people really have wanted answers to since the game's launch. Let me know what you guys think about all that's addressed in the FAQ down in the comment section down below. Thank you so much for making it to the end of the video. If you enjoyed or found it entertaining, make sure to scroll down and make that like button glow so we can reach our goal of 25 likes for this video. While you're down there, consider subscribing as we will be covering Space Marine 2 as updates come out, other AAA games throughout the year, hilarious content, and more. As always, your support through your viewership, liking, and subscribing is always greatly appreciated and helps me out tremendously against the tyrannid threat that is the YouTube algorithm. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope to catch you guys next time. Peace!